Okay.
Hi, I'm April, and today we're going to make Chile Rellenos. It's another classic, and it's going to be done just as the natives do it. So a big problem that people have when they try and do Chile Rellenos in a restaurant is they don't roast their chilies. It's really an important step. And so you go to the store and you get pasilla or poblano chilies, and they're pretty big, but they're going to shrink down. So you squish them all on your cookie sheet. You can use obviously an open flame or a grill or an actual broiler, or I'm sorry, a roaster, but I don't have all those tools. So I just put them in the oven on the highest rack possible, and I broil them on high. So you don't really need to set a timer, because when you smell them burning is when you're gonna go and turn them. You actually want the skins to burn. So you don't need to worry about that smell, but your house will start to smell like chilies. Okay, so we've roasted the chilies, and they've also been sitting in the bag in the refrigerator for a few hours. You'll see that they have shrunk down significantly. When you put them in the bag, we could barely seal it up. So now what we do is we rinse and peel the chilies. And so this step, you have to be pretty delicate with the chili, because if you start to shred it, you won't be able to stuff it. So you find the burnt skin. That's why the more burnt, the better. And you peel it off while remaining the chili intact. So this step is super important. This is what you're going to see people skip. They don't roast the chilies. They don't have them soft. You need to actually wash off the burnt part. Now another thing is the seeds are super spicy. And so you actually want to open a little slit at the top, and you want to take out, rinse out as many of the seeds as you possibly can. Now it's okay if they're in there. You know, it's not like people don't expect a little spice. But I use that sliver, and I just kind of keep washing them out. And then you set them down and move on to the next chili. Okay, so I can smell the chilies now, so I'm gonna come check on them. You can see that they are starting to burn on top. You want the skin to blister and for it to turn black like that. So now I'm looking for something to turn them. Use this to hold on to it. So now I'm going to kind of turn them so we can get all sides. The more burnt, the easier the next step will be when we have to peel off the skin. So I may even blister this side again. So you can see we're turning them to the non-blistered side. Sticking them back in the broiler. Them again. Whoa, it's quite slippery. By the way, smoke will come out, so kind of move your head to the side. But you can see they're really blistering, which is good. That's what you want. Just gonna do the sides now. They're pretty big chilies, so there will probably always be about 3 times that you turn it. And it is possible to buy the chilies already roasted. So you just have to hope that they're not too shredded. I've bought them roasted before and they're too shredded to actually make Chile Rellenos, but okay, so I'm gonna stick it back in for about another 5 minutes. Thanks. Okay, so I can smell the final side burning. See how the smoke kind of comes out? I'm gonna pop them out. These are blistered just enough. You don't need to do it anymore. You can see that it's kind of a limp pepper now, and they're not broken up. So what you do with these is you put them in a bag to sweat. You can use a paper bag or a plastic bag. Now, the plastic bags will burn holes through it. And so you definitely want to keep them in something like a bag or a bowl. And so you just set them in. Like this. I put about 6 a bag. You seal it up to sweat. And that's gonna shrink them down even more. And it's gonna, any of the remaining skin that didn't quite burn, it will loosen it up. And it'll be good for peeling and a nice soft texture for the chili relleno. A lot of times if you've had them in restaurants, you probably get a big hard chili or a chili with all the skin on. And it's just not the same. It's not authentic. So I have it in the bowl, in here. I'm gonna stick them in our refrigerator. You can see all my kids' lunches. And let them sweat for at least a few hours. You can even, at this point, you've spent enough time, you can stick them in the freezer and you can go to that stage another time when you're ready for your chili rellenos. Okay, so now we have all of our ingredients here. We have the roasted chilies that are peeled and seeded to the extent that I could. We have about 4 eggs for 12 chilies. We have the cheese sliced, no larger than this. And this would be for like the largest chili. Because you have to realize that it melts, and when you have cheese spilling out, it doesn't go very well for the frying. Now for the kind of cheese that I used Chihuahua. Now this is really hard to find. So if you can't use this, use Monterey Jack and slice them in that, no bigger than this for sure. And I have flour and then some oil for frying. Okay. So first thing that we do when they're laying out is we dry them really, really well. Because you don't want wet chilies. So you take the time with the paper towel to go on each side. Now you don't want the stem to come off like that if you can control it, because it's a lot easier to fry them with the stem on. So kind of hold it by the base. Okay. And then we're gonna stuff these with cheese, but a really important step that can be forgotten is the salt. So if you have a chili relleno that has not been salted, it's not that good, to be honest. It's well worth salting it very well. And you salt it beforehand on the chilies directly, because you don't want to lose any of that. You want it to be absorbed into the moisture. So you literally go like this per side. I've undersalted before, hoping not to use as much salt, and it was a lot of work for a chili relleno that wasn't nearly as good. Okay, so here we have a really big chili, and so I'm using a really big piece of cheese that I've cut. So you're gonna find that slit, you're gonna slide it in as much to the bottom as you can, and fold the chili over it. I'm in the process right now of stuffing the chilies, and you can see here that some of these are pretty shredded. That's just what happens. So it's okay to still try and fry these, but I put them in my last batch because the cheese will leak. So it's just a good tip. Okay, so now we are going to separate the egg whites from the yolks. And you definitely want to make sure you keep your yolks, all of them, because you never know which ones are going to work and which ones aren't. You will see that later on. So I'm using 4 egg whites. And here are my reserved egg yolks. Just keeping them in the shell. Okay, so now I'm going to whisk the egg whites until they form white peaks. So you need to put it on a high speed for probably 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm wrapping up the egg whites here. You can see that they're firm peaks, okay? So I'm gonna set this to the side. And this is where our egg yolks come in handy. I'm gonna add in 2 egg yolks for right now. Like this guy right here. And then you're gonna get a spatula and you cannot overmix. You're going to fold in the egg yolk. You want it to be a light brown or like a beige. These happen to be very bright egg yolks. You don't want to fold it any more than that. So you can see that it's like a yellow color. Okay, so I just put corn oil in the pan, about that much. You want to coat it as if you're going to saute something and then some. You want it to go all the way around. And you want to start the oil before you start dipping the chilies, because you want hot oil. Because once you've dipped it in this, you need to directly put it in the sizzling oil. So over here, I'm gonna take my best looking stuffed chilies because I want the oil to stay as clean as possible throughout the process. So this one, I think this one looks pretty good to show it. Has its stem, hardly any tears. So you put it in the flour, and then I'm gonna wait for the oil to heat up. Okay, my oil is hot and ready to go. So I take the chili and you just gently slide it in. You don't want to overcoat it. Just slide it in like that. And you lay it in the oil. You can see it's lightly sizzling. It is an egg, so you don't want the oil to be too hot. They've been cooking now for about a minute, and you want to turn them gently. That's why you want the stem. If not, you can kind of grab it by the base as best you can. Then, because it's an egg, you can kind of put it back together. This is definitely the hardest part, is to turn. But you'll see, be surprised, even the ones that break apart end up cooking together pretty well. So this one right here, you can see is not as happy. So I'm gonna put a little more on top and just disregard this. And then I'll turn it one last time. Okay, so that one's, you know, sort of surviving. But then you now want to even get to the sides. You can even use the spoon and just kind of spoon up the oil. Here you can see this side is in need. Some oil right there. You can even hold it in place. Okay, here we have our final product. And it's really yummy, and it's one of my favorite things. And a lot of times in Mexico, they eat them just plain. You can put some crema on the top or some salsa. A lot of times they just make a burrito out of it. They spread some beans on the tortilla and roll it up, and it's just really fun. And I'm having fun showing you all my international adventures. Something I like to do when I meet people from a different country is I like to say, hey, show me what you like to eat there. Show me your native food. Then I cook with them and I learn all the details. And so that way you don't get the American version of a foreign food. You get the real deal. Okay, my dad's gonna tell me what he thinks of the Chile Relleno.
Well, even if you weren't my daughter, I'd say this is the best I've ever had.